Kasparas Jakucionis, what's going on? When's he coming back? Locked On Illini, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday morning edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sunny Verma. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. Find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just do a search for Locked On Illini. Say hello. Give me some feedback, some good, some bad. Just keep it constructive. That's all I ask. I got a whole bunch of messages from you guys on Saturday after that USC game, and I totally understand why. A lot of venting going on, a lot of feedback, both good and bad, about my show. And again, I always appreciate when you guys reach out to me, and just know that when you get a response, it's from me directly. I'm the one running all those accounts. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay, so obviously, let's try to move on now. Saturday, there was a very embarrassing performance by the Fighting Illini against the USC Trojans, a Trojans team which is not very good, and a team that really Illinois should have beaten by double figures plus. But for those of you who tuned into my episode on Sunday, I kind of addressed that game. I got to watch it twice. And again, I don't recommend any of you doing that. Let me do that because I'm paid to do it. Don't watch that game again. Just forget it and move on, because that's kind of what I want to do. That was a game where just nothing went right. And I'm talking about all the players minus maybe one or two. Just the effort wasn't there. And I just think sometimes it just isn't your day. And for the Illini on Saturday, it wasn't their day, and it wasn't Brad Underwood's day. And I have no choice, at least in my own mindset, to chalk it up and just kind of throw that game out the window. Now, of course, it's still going to count in the standings, and it's still going to count when, the Big Ten championship is rewarded, and we're talking about which seed line we're going to be when it comes for March Madness and the bracket. But at least in the short term, it's one of those where the game left a bad taste in all of our mouths. It's one of those where I wish I could skillfully review the game and be like, hey, they did this wrong. This was uncharacteristic. And, they just need to shore this up. It just wasn't one of those games. It was just one of those where collectively it was just a horrible effort. And it's not how I'm judging this team moving forward. I don't think they're going to play like that again. Hopefully not. Again, if you caught Sunday's episode, I talk about how the Big Ten title is still within reach. The journey got a lot tougher, and we're going to need some help on the way, but it's still something that could be plausible. It's not going to be plausible, however, if we don't get Kasparas Jakucionis back. He's missed 2 games in a row now, of course, and in the Penn State game, we clearly didn't need him. We had 91 points in one of our best offensive performances of the season. The game was never really close, and the threes were falling, and 5 minutes into that game, the offense found itself, and all of a sudden it was clear and there was nothing to worry about. But we had quite the humbling against USC on Saturday, against a team that I think is poorer than Penn State. There just was a no-show from essentially everybody, and you really got a glimpse of what makes Kasparas just so important to this team. I talked about this in the post-game report. And by the way, I do a post-game report after every game, both basketball and football. And if you guys ask if there's enough interest, I'll do it after the women's basketball games, if that's what you guys want. And if you guys promise that you'll tune in. But I talked about how with about 7 minutes left, I called out for Kylan Boswell or Trey White to really step it up. We needed a veteran presence, one of these players, while the game was still relatively close, to be like, hey guys, calm down, I got it. And unfortunately, neither of them was capable of doing it. And that's just kind of the role that Kasparas has been playing all season long. Sure, he's a distributor. Sure, he makes plays for his teammates. But when the games are close at the end and we need a guy to have the ball in his hands and make the right decisions or make the tough basketball shots, That's just what Kasparas has done. That's what he did against Washington, and that's what he's done many times already this year. We were lacking that against USC, and I'm afraid that in any close game moving forward where Kasparas is not playing, this is going to be the same concern I'm going to have. We play the Indiana Hoosiers on Tuesday, and we play Michigan State Spartans on Sunday. That Michigan State Spartans game is going to be vital for the health of your chances of winning the Big Ten the Big Ten Conference for the season. Hopefully, Kasparas is going to come back. I know some of you are tuning in and wondering, maybe even hoping, if I have some news to announce, news to break. I'm reaching out to everybody, and Illinois is basically tight-lipped about this. Now, some of you, that type of reaction might paranoid some of you. For me, I haven't reached a level where I'm worried yet, just because I've reported that he's practicing, full practice. And I'm talking about he's going out there as if there's no injury that's happening. It's just that his forearm is causing him a lot of discomfort. It doesn't look like it's anything structural, right? If there's something structural, they would be playing him. Or certainly they wouldn't be playing him in these practices where you're going to get hacked. You're going to, the practices are going to be physical, especially Brad Underwood practices. Those aren't a lazy day in the office. Brad really works his players hard. But this could be a good thing or a bad thing. The good thing is, of course, if it's not structural, then it's just a simple waiting game. The bad thing is, how long is this waiting game going to be? Kasparas is going to be pretty important to beat a team like Indiana, who has a lot of very good college basketball players on it. I said coming in that the talent level on the Hoosiers was the best in the entire Big Ten Conference. And, in some ways, I do believe that. I believe they have the best college basketball players. But they've obviously struggled with their coaching. The guy in charge of that program right now just shouldn't be. I've been very open about that even in the offseason. It's a team that Illinois should be able to beat. And honestly, I think Illinois can beat them even without Kasparas. What we saw on Saturday was not a glimpse into what Illinois will look like without Kasparas Jakucionis. What we saw the game before against Penn State is also not a glimpse of what Illinois will look like without Kasparas Jakucionis. Truthfully, if Kasparas is out for a long, extended period of time, Illinois is still a mid to top half basketball team. There's just a lot of talent on this team. And sure, it wouldn't be Big Ten contending, but I think just the talent itself and the coaching, keyword is coaching, is good enough to still stay afloat until the hopeful, inevitable return of Kasparas. Again, the feedback I'm getting, not just from the insiders aren't telling me anything. And I've been very upfront. I can't pick and prod too much because I'm very grateful for the information they do give me when they choose to give it to me. All I can judge by is Brad Underwood is saying he's day-to-day. And from my eyes, it looks like he's day-to-day. It looks like obviously that forearm/wrist is sore. From what, we don't know, because again, Illinois is just not telling anyone anything. But it's sore from something. And my hope is he comes back for Indiana. Can we beat Indiana without Kasparas? Sure. But we're going to have to play like we did against Penn State. A lot of these guys are going to have to turn up that hustle, make sure we grab all those rebounds. And we're going to hope the three-point shot is falling against the Hoosiers, because at Bloomington is always going to be a tough place to play basketball, regardless of how talented the team on the other side is. And again, the team itself is actually pretty talented. How good they are, I don't know. Keep in mind, they're coming off a very rough loss to Iowa as well. So it's one of those where we're just kind of wait and see mode with Kasparas. Hopefully we get some good news, at least as of this recording. I have no updates to give, but you kind of see the importance of Kasparas. You want a guy who can just run the offense. And in particular, the main guy I was kind of focused on in my rewatch of the game is Kel'el Boswell. Kel'el Boswell, when he's not the main focus, when he doesn't have that many responsibilities, is a fantastic player. He's a guy who is a very good role player on a basketball team. If we saddle Kel'el with lead point guard responsibilities and the main responsibility to shut down the opposing player's best defensive or offensive player, now we're just putting Kel'el in the position where we might be asking him to do too much. And, that's just not fair. He hasn't played point guard purely since last year. Sure, he can here and there, but you can really see that the team looked a lot different on Saturday, in particular when Kylan got into foul trouble. Then we really had no natural point guard. We had multiple different people bringing it up the court, and you just see the issue of depth when Kasparas is gone. And hopefully I'll have some breaking news for you at some point this week, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I don't know, about Kasparas' status. My feeling is we're not going to hear anything about him coming back until we literally see him take his warm-ups off and be on the court when it's time to have that jump ball. But regardless, if we do hear anything, make sure you're locked in right here on Locked On Illini. Again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit that notification bell because I tend to go live immediately for what I consider really big breaking news. And certainly Kasparas Jakucionis coming back would classify as big breaking news. Right after this, we're going to be talking to JR and find out exactly how far the Illini have fallen in this week's Big Ten Power Rankings. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was dealing with piles of paperwork and frustrating forms, and then waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to TurboTax Expert, who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on all their progress, and you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your day. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantee. All right, so it is Monday, and now that basketball season is well underway. You guys know I'm going to be joined by my good friend, JR from the Big Ten Huddle. JR, I'm kind of afraid of the segment today. Us Illini fans are a little bit sensitive over what we saw on Saturday, but, again, sometimes you just need to rip the Band-Aid off. I should ask first, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. Don't worry. I was easy on Illinois, so I have some bad news, obviously, but I believe I have some good news for Illinois fans as well. I got to stay in their good graces. I don't think they're going to listen to the Monday episode if they don't like me. So I got to bring some good news whenever I bring some bad news as well.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. As usual, let's start from the bottom up. And, if there's a particular team, I'm not going to mess around with anyone from the bottom half of the Big Ten.
You want to talk about Minnesota versus Rutgers?
Zero interest. Oh, well, I mean, Rutgers, I feel like we've already talked about enough at this point. But, that's just one of those stories where if I'm Steve Peichel, I'm very, very nervous right now. But, let's just start off with the bottom half of your Big Ten rankings.
Yeah, so bottom half would be Minnesota, Rutgers, Washington, Northwestern, Penn State, USC, Ohio State, Indiana, and then is Nebraska the bottom half cut off there? I believe, yeah, Nebraska. So that's the bottom half right there. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that or you want to touch on anything there.
No, let's just move on to the top half and find out just how far the Illini have fallen.
All right. Well, the biggest faller was actually UCLA after they lost to 2 games to Michigan and Nebraska. Obviously, those were tough games, but still a team like UCLA that has had as much success as they have, they should have been able to win those games or at least look more competitive, and they just weren't able to do so, especially one of them being at home. So I have UCLA dropping down to 9th, and then from there...
Let's go ahead and talk about UCLA for a second, because I know a mutual friend of ours, a friend of my program and friend of yours, Kent, Big Ten Casual, or is it Casual Big Ten?
Casual Big Ten.
Casual Big Ten. He was obviously
He'll get mad at you if you get it wrong.
He doesn't watch this anyway. It's fine. He was very high on UCLA, coming into this year. And I told him, I was like, look, I get what Mick Cronin's doing, but Sky Clark didn't work under Brad Underwood. Brad Underwood yelled at him, and Sky Clark couldn't wait to get out of there. Mick Cronin's just another version of Brad. And so I knew, at least at the point guard position, that I didn't think that fit was going to work. So this really isn't all that surprising. I'm seeing tweets during UCLA games, hashtag free Sky Clark and whatnot. It's just like, us Illini fans, especially here at Locked On Illini, we know this drill. And it was just one of those where it just wasn't a good fit from the beginning. Maybe, at Louisville with Kenny Payne, that worked. But again, it wasn't a very good basketball team. But Sky needs a certain type of head coach in his life. And Mick Cronin, just like Brad Underwood, is not that type of coach.
Yeah, it's definitely not been working. I had hoped that it would possibly work since he was going to be behind Dylan Andrews and that situation there. And, things that I was hopeful about was Tyler Bilodeau and his ability to score, and Kobe Johnson being able to come in and be a playmaker for them as well. But it's not been working. And when I see Mick Cronin, which, by the way, if you ever want some entertainment, I know that press conferences with coaches are not super entertaining, but go watch a Mick Cronin press conference because he is just unhinged. He's crazy.
100%.
There was a big quote that came out of it the other day. People are like, "Oh wow, Mick Cronin is crazy," and it's like, you haven't been watching his press conferences long enough, because he really does say some crazy stuff. But overall, yeah, it's not working right now. Things could always change. We'll see. It's a long season, but at least for now, you should be able to beat Michigan at home, and then obviously Nebraska is a tough place to stay, but or a tough place to play, but you can't get embarrassed like that, especially when Nebraska, they lost other games as well, but you can't get embarrassed like that.
Mm-hmm. Right, who else we got?
All right, moving up from there, actually have Iowa ahead of them. Iowa with a good showing here lately, and then from there, Wisconsin, Maryland has stayed up there, even with the loss to Washington last week, and then Purdue. I know you love when we talk about them, but they are fifth. Oregon, Illinois comes in at third for me.
Okay.
And then let me just round it out, and then we can talk
Sure.
Illinois. Second is Michigan State, and then at the top of it all is Michigan with some good wins this week.
So, JR, you know what? I think a good topic to kind of handle is on Sunday, I actually released another episode where I talked about, Saturday after the USC game, I did a post-game press conference, a post-game episode. And I call it in the middle of the show. I say this is either a celebration or a therapy session. Feel free to release any hot takes you want, even in the comment section. I tell my listeners to let me know whatever's on your mind. Even if I don't agree with it, I talk about it on air. And Saturday, I did say that, look, there's a chance that the Big Ten Conference is now out of reach when it comes to winning the Big Ten Conference. But for me, the excuse, to give you a heads up, I got so many DMs, so many messages saying, "Hey, Sonny, you're usually more optimistic. How could you think that? How could you say that?" That was a big turnoff, and literally almost a dozen messages. So I felt compelled to come back on Sunday and be like, "Hey, look, sure, I participate in the venting session just as much as you guys. I watched that game. Unfortunately for me, I watched that game twice because I want to do a proper recap for the audience here. And so I just said, hey, I was in the same mood that we're all in. But I came back Sunday and I did release an episode saying that, last year at this point, Illinois was 3-2, and they ultimately finished 14-6 in the conference. Quite honestly, obviously they didn't win the Big Ten Conference last year, but because Purdue existed, and Purdue was clear in a way, like on a different level from anyone else in the Big Ten, the second best team in the country, almost inarguably, in my opinion. This year, there is no Purdue. And even if you kind of duplicate the success of last year's team, 14-6 could absolutely win you the Big Ten Conference this year. There is no dominant team, and I think you've kind of alluded to that as well. So let me ask you, of course I'm biased, are the chances for Illinois, now that they've already racked up 2 losses, and let's be honest, 2 not very good losses, Northwestern and USC, those are not teams that Illinois should be losing to, but are there chances for a Big Ten Conference title over?
No, I don't think so, because I think Illinois still has the opportunity to win big games, right? We've seen them lose some stinkers, and that happens. But if you can win the big games, if you can beat Michigan State this next week, I know we'll talk about that and preview that a little bit. But if you can beat at Indiana, which I might go to that game. I don't know. I went to the Rutgers game, and that was fun. I need to see Kasparas Jakucionis now, which hopefully he's playing. I don't know.
Hopefully,
Is he playing? Is he playing?
We
for
don't
that
know. Yeah, but
Yeah.
none of us know. They haven't announced
Come
it
on,
yet.
Brad. We need answers, Brad. Okay. But yeah, no, I like for me, if you can win that game at Indiana and then you can win the game at Michigan State, you skyrocket right back to the top of the Big Ten rankings because I know Indiana doesn't have the best numbers this season. I think they're still like 50th in KenPom, but it is a very tough place to play. You have to give credit for a team that can go into Indiana and win, especially with an Indiana team playing like they are right now. And then obviously Michigan State, I believe they still do not have a loss in the Big Ten right now. So yeah, their only losses are Memphis and Kansas. So with everything the way it's going for them, if you're able to get both those wins, you're right back to the top. This is what good teams, this is what Big Ten championship caliber teams do. If you lose one, you shouldn't. You go out there and you win one that you shouldn't have won because KenPom and all the other people weren't picking you to do that. And I think Illinois has that opportunity now. I don't see a team in the Big Ten that Illinois cannot beat. And that's the biggest thing for me.
Exactly right. That was kind of the gist of what I said. I think it's a 4-team race for the Big Ten Conference this year at this point. I think now that we are 2 losses behind Michigan, they're probably the favorite. I put Illinois as my second favorite to win the Big Ten Conference, and then Purdue third, and Michigan State fourth. Not that I don't believe in Michigan State, but I kind of don't believe in Michigan State. I want to see how they perform this week against that matchup against Illinois. They got it at home. If they show me something, maybe I'll change things around. But the key factor is, as you just said, Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue. Illinois still has to play all 3 of those teams. And in my opinion, Illinois is the most talented team in the conference. And when they're on and when Kasparas is playing, they are a team that I can see, finishing 12-2 down the stretch or something like that. Again, we saw a glimpse of what they can do against Arkansas, even against Penn State. Sure, they put up a stinker against USC, but Illinois tends to do that at least once every January, at least a Brad Underwood team. I don't know why, but it's just something that happens. But again, last year
we also cannot just assume that other Big Ten teams are not going to put up stinkers as well. Maryland lost to Washington. That can happen. Michigan State could lose somebody at some point. I know Kent isn't going to like me saying this, and other people aren't going to like me saying this as well because he's really high on Michigan, but what Michigan is doing right now is not sustainable. It is not sustainable to turn the ball over as much as they are, and it's not sustainable for them to allow the shooting that they are allowing at this point. Now, they have Vlad Golden and they have Danny Wolf playing at a very high level. They are playing at 2 of the highest levels in all of the Big Ten, but they really have to fix some things if they want to win the Big Ten championship because you just can't make this many mistakes and win it all. The Big Ten is just too good of a conference.
So there you have it. It's not just me saying it. It's Big Ten expert JR also telling us that the season is far from over. It's going to be a lot of ups and hopefully very few downs. Right after this, we're going to talk a little bit about the Hoosiers and the Spartans. Attending the new 12-team college football playoff games is an incredible experience that brings fans together like never before. I remember the excitement of past playoff games and can't wait to make new memories with the updated format and extra teams involved. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time's Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, JR. So Illinois is not the only team coming off of an embarrassing loss. Indiana got boat raced by the Hawkeyes over the weekend. Indiana's a team that, of course, preseason was very popular. They spent a lot of money. They were very aggressive in the transfer portal, except there's one constant from the last couple of years from Indiana Hoosiers teams from the past and this year, and that's the head coach. And it doesn't look like things have corrected themselves all that much. Give a high-level view to the fans or the listeners of Locked On Illini on what Indiana is all about this year.
Yeah, it's important to look at Indiana their past few games. They've not had Malik Renew since the Rutgers game, so if you're looking at kind of like their season-long stats, you're going to be deceived a little bit. So I went through the numbers and I looked through the conference games that Indiana has played so far. That does include 2 games where Malik Renew was there, but for the most part, I think it's accurate in talking about this team. This offensive rebounding percentage for Indiana is 34.2%. That is second best in the Big Ten in conference play. So we're taking out those cupcake games and everything else. We're just looking at conference play, and Indiana has the second highest offensive rebounding percent, and they also lead the Big Ten in conference play for offensive rebounds a game in 13. A lot of that is because Oumar Ballo is just an absolute beast right now. He is averaging 4.5 offensive rebounds per game. If you want that put into perspective, Owen Freeman, who they just played at Iowa, he averages 5 defensive rebounds per game. So Oumar Ballo is averaging almost as many offensive rebounds per game as Owen Freeman is averaging defensive rebounds. And I think it's going to be a good test, right? This Illinois team was out-rebounded for the second time this season, I believe. Tennessee was the only other team that did that. So, I mean, they're really going to have to get in there. They're going to have to get gritty. Obviously, if KJ comes back, that will help. But, Brad's got to get these guys waking up on the right side of the bed this time. He said they woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Brad, remind them which side they should get off of when you're playing Indiana, because although they are much more talented than Indiana, in my mind, Indiana does have some NBA players on this team. Mackenzie Mbako, Oumar Ballo will make it to the league as well. Obviously, Illinois has the coaching edge over Mike Woodson, but the biggest thing I'm going to be looking at, this will be my biggest thing for Indiana, Illinois, is that Indiana, their guards foul like crazy. Oumar Ballo fouls as well, but Miles Rice and Trey Galloway, they both are nearly averaging 3 fouls per game at this point. It's just absolutely insane. And for a team in Illinois who shoots a high free throw percentage but doesn't shoot a lot of free throws, they really need to take advantage of that. They had a poor shooting game this last time. They need to get to the line. They need to get some more confidence, and if they can start seeing those balls go in, that's going to help them, and that's obviously going to help them on the rebounding as well. So my 2 keys for Illinois: rebound the ball much better, and also get to the rim, get fouled, and hit your free throws.
Yeah, I really fully do expect the rebounding numbers to bounce back up. As I mentioned, every year annually, Brad Underwood does have his annual stinker, but we usually bounce back pretty strong. And there's no way that he's letting up on practice over the last couple of days after that USC game. He's reminding the team this is what you do to be successful. And rebounding, as you said, we've only been out-rebounded twice this year, and both of those games ended up being losses. And I don't think there's a big opportunity for Indiana to out-rebound Illinois the way how aggressive I think the Illini are going to be. Let's talk about Michigan State. Obviously, undefeated, 5-0, surprising a few people. Tell us a little bit about the Spartans.
Yeah, the Spartans have a great bench. In quad 1 games, they average 33.3 bench points per game. 5 different players for them averaging 9 or more points per game at this point. In quad 1 games, they also they put up a lot of shots, but shoot I apologize. Teams get up a lot of shots, but teams will shoot a low percentage against them. So they shoot 62 shots per game in quad 1 games against them, but teams are only shooting 43.5%. If you want to know where I get these numbers at, it's CBB Analytics. You can use my code HUDDLE for $30 off, which is essentially your first month off. Sorry, little side gig there for you, but I thought your listeners might be interested in that opportunity. But you also look at this team, and this Michigan State team, surprisingly enough, in quad 1 games and in home games, they've not done a great job of taking care of the ball. 12 turnovers against Washington at home and 17 turnovers against Nebraska at home. In fact, against Nebraska, they had a 20.5 turnover rate, which is just absolutely horrendous. And so for this Illinois team who has struggled to get steals and stuff like that, not so much turnover teams, they're just not so much getting the steals on the stat sheet. This is a opportunity where their defense is going to be utilized. They have the opportunity to utilize their defense to get turnovers on Michigan State, get out, fast break points, and really contend with Michigan State in those opportunities as well, because Michigan State likes to get out and run. They like to, have their guys out there, not just getting to the rim, but also shooting the 3 as well. And so that's something they're going to have to look for. This could be a game where you see a lot of running, you see a lot of fast break points, just with the nature of the two teams. And honestly, I'm super excited to watch Michigan State, Illinois. I just think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky for me because that morning I run my first ever half marathon, and I'm not ready for that at all. And then at 11 o'clock, I've got to watch Illinois go up against Michigan State, and I have to watch it because you're talking about potential Big Ten implications. So, it's going to be a fun Sunday for me. JR, this has been a wonderful segment with you. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, the Big Ten Huddle. If you're ever running a half marathon, just go find the podcast and you can listen to me and Zach and or me and Kent, Casual Big Ten. He's on there for our power ranking show. We'll do another one tomorrow morning where we go through and talk about our power rankings, and we'll kind of debate. We always have some fun with it too. We might make a laugh at Mike Woodson, or I'm sure Mick Cronin will be mentioned this next time, and we'll have some fun talking about it all. So go check us out over at the Big Ten Huddle podcast, YouTube, all those different places.
JR, appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
And that's going to wrap up another edition of Locked On Illini. I thank you all so much for your continual support. All day, every day, we're going to have Illini content for you. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We've got an Indiana preview coming on Tuesday. We've got Big Ten Ted, of course, recapping the Big Ten performance in the Final Four of the college football playoff on Tuesday. But then we're going to be talking different aspects, and hopefully we'll have a KJ update. Whenever there's breaking news, just make sure you've got that notification button, bell hit, and you'll know immediately when I go live, and we'll have a good conversation back and forth. So until next time, ILL. Love you guys.